Today, Great.com talks with Chris Starling, who is the Executive Director at NPower. If you haven't heard of them, they are a non-profit organization on a mission to create pathways to economic prosperity for military veterans and young adults. If you are new here, please press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because today we learn the benefits of empowering underrepresented talent to pursue tech futures. Hello, Chris, and welcome to our podcast. To kick this off and to start with, for me, say, and anybody new here, what is NPower and what do you do?
So when I talk to people, I say, I take people from poverty to middle class in 23 weeks. And what does that mean? I serve two kinds of people. I serve veterans of all branches of the armed forces, even those that are currently serving in the reserves or National Guard, and young adults from underserved communities. So I'm talking to you from San Francisco, California, but NPower is in 7 different states across the country. And what we do is we provide free tech training, entry-level tech training. You can earn up to 3 or 4 certificates, industry recognized. And before we're even done with the course, which is 100% free, we put your resume out to different tech companies, partners that we have. So by the time you're done, the intent is to put you out onto a paid internship or a full-time paid job in tech. And when I say veterans, I also include veteran spouses in that. Very important component of this. So young adults ages 18 to 26, veterans and veteran spouses are eligible for this. And it's about getting them a job in the workforce, not just to get a job, but to have upward mobility where you can make a lot more money by getting more certificates and adding to your education.
Yeah, Chris, thank you for explaining that to us there. So why would you say then what you guys do is so important?
What's important is taking people that are unemployed or underemployed and opening some doors for them, especially for veterans from the combat arms. I was an infantryman for 26 years as a Marine, so I understand what it's like to leave the military where your whole life is wrapped up in that. But if you leave the military as a combat arms person, I'll give you an example. I had a young woman, Celeste. She was my honor graduate yesterday. She was an Army mechanic for 6 years. She got out and she worked in some processing and packing plants for minimum wage. Then she got a job at a hospital as a security guard, making sure the doors were locked for minimum wage. After 16 weeks of training, she now works at Google as a robot tester. How cool is that? With some basic certifications. If you can play Madden football, or you can play other video games on your iPhone, if you can navigate using one of these, you can do tech fundamentals. So that's what makes it special. And what the second thing I'll tell you that makes it special is half the class is young adults from underserved communities. And for me, here in the Bay Area, that's San Jose, that's inner city Oakland. And I pair up veterans who have been out in the world and doing things. And I tell them, look, I want you to focus on your post-traumatic strength. You have something to offer these kids. And guess what? They've been in a combat zone too. Maybe different from yours, but they're from hard scrabble backgrounds. It's not about you. It's about you getting that person out of that inner city Oakland or out of the inner city San Jose, putting them into a good job somewhere. And the veterans glom onto that because as a veteran, it's not all about you. You already know, you've been training, that it's about the team. And so what I want is these groups, I call them peer pods, to cross the finish line together. Half veterans, half young adults. And the veterans teach the young adults discipline, and the young adults teach us veterans how to chill out a little bit from our overly regimentalized lifestyles.
Wow, thanks so much, Chris, for sharing that there as well. And I like you mentioned the lady there about being a mechanic, I think you said for 6 years, right? And she come out and she was picking and packing in, say, a warehouse. So what do you say, like, is the main reason for, say, these individuals coming out of the forces, etc., and then finding themselves in jobs that they don't really like or enjoy, or say these minimum wage jobs? What's the main reason for them doing that?
Man, that's a great question, Ryan. You know, when you leave the military, you're leaving a family. All your best friends, and you get a DD 214 form. You get taken out to the bus stop. Somebody shakes your hands and thanks you for your service. You've been to a 2-week transition course, but it's a scary world out there. For a lot of people, if you live in a barracks or something, you've never even paid an electric bill, right? You go to the chow hall. So now you're got to go back home and live in your parents' basement, or for a lot of kids, I just got to move in with some other people that are getting out and make it through. A lot of people just drive Uber, and sometimes they don't have the confidence to say, well, I want to work in a tech job. The guys that are doing air traffic control or that are satellite communicators, they're in pretty good shape, right? Well, like I said, if you're in one of those other MOSs, that's tough. And maybe you don't like being a auto mechanic or a truck mechanic, right? So tech is a place where you can find something. And we have advanced courses for cloud, cybersecurity. Get your tech fundamentals, just like military training. Get brilliance at the basics and then move into some of the other cool areas that are out there. You can do this. And not only can you do that job, but there's upward mobility on the other end. You keep getting us some certifications, you can get promoted. And the paychecks for the students that I place into jobs, about $55,000 a year. That's okay. You're not Steve Jobs jumping out of a cardboard box and being a CIO or a CEO of a big company, but you're starting out decent, and the upward mobility is there in tech, like it's not maybe in the service industry.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you mentioned there about these people in the jobs and they're not actually enjoying the jobs. You said there again also, but like with tech, like for me personally, I believe like technology, like it never goes backwards. Technology, right? It's always advanced in, and technology will save the world. Like everything is tech based nowadays, right? So, there is a more to give. Like for people say that are going into the tech fields, these veterans coming out of the military, there's always advancement. Like they can always level up in that job. So maybe starting on that basic wage of, like you say, 50K is a good start, definitely. So no, that's amazing to hear. So what I'd like to ask you then, Chris, is since its founding in the year 2000, what have been some of your greatest challenges and how have you overcome them?
Yeah, I think, the challenge for us is we're a nonprofit, so we don't have a giant marketing budget. So going out and finding the right people. NPower is not for everybody, right? However, we do have a really great retention rate of about, over 80, 85% that make it through. But we screen them on the front end. We've learned and evolved the program. And I've been at NPower since 2019. Even in that small time, we've had to adapt and change. The pandemic threw us a curveball because we were training in a classroom. We had computers and you take them apart and you put them back together. When the pandemic hit, I thought, man, how are we going to do this without being in the classroom? Everybody there, face-to-face instruction. We had to move everything online. That was a huge challenge, but we did it. There are ways to learn how to assemble and disassemble a computer totally online. You grab the parts with your mouse and move it around and stick. And we didn't really understand how effective that training was going to be. Turns out it's been really great. But not only that, my first class that I trained here in California in 2019 in May was 34 students. I just enrolled a class of 88 students in this class. I can train almost 3 times as many people online. My instructors, some of them are veterans. I've hired half of my staff are veterans, and the other half are civilians. The other thing I'll add is some people come to us, they're living in a homeless shelter, they've got really tough times. I can help them. I have a social support manager dedicated that calls every student once every 2 weeks. Do you have a roof over your head? Do you have food on the table? Does your Wi-Fi work and is your computer working? If the answer to those things is yes, we're in decent shape. We can work with the rest of it. I can help you with childcare. I can help you get a desk and a chair. For one of my students said my back hurts at the kitchen table. I open my classrooms that I have up to students if they need to come somewhere to find a place to study. So the challenges that we had are really about getting the right people in the door and then taking care of them. And on the back end, we figured out that it's not enough just to get someone a job. You got to stick with them. So we stick with our students for 3 years. And actually, I've got a young Royal Marine who took the class, who called me the other day. He is losing the job that he's in. So we said, hey, no problem. Come back. We'll dust off your resume and we'll put you back out there. And so one thing when I say tech training, 4 days a week or tech training, 1 day a week I dedicate to soft skills, writing your resume, getting your LinkedIn up to speed, mock interviews, practicing to interview for a job, very important. Learning about what's the difference between a credit card and a debit card, some financial management class. How do you dress properly? Not like me today in my t-shirt, but I want to advertise as much as I can. So, but normally I make my students wear a collared shirt. On day one, I say, you're no longer, Joe Smith, Army veteran. You are now an IT professional. You're no longer, Jeremy from Inner City, Oakland. You're an IT professional.
Wow. So you mentioned about the COVID. I mean, the COVID impact, it was obviously bad, but also you mentioned that you can now teach up to 3 times more students, was it? Or
Yep.
2 times, or double the amount, or just over double the amount. So
Yes.
like that's a say big positive that you managed to take away from the whole COVID impact. But then also what I wanted to mention, Chris, with you actually is about, say, these individuals, because you mentioned this earlier. You said they don't know a lot of things. Like they come out, they never had to pay rent, etc. Like these individuals. So what are some of the ways that you say teach them just like these life skills? I know you mentioned it just there, but also I want to know what ongoing support do you give, say, based on their mental health? Because you mentioned something about the post-traumatic brain. Sorry, can you just mention again? You said something earlier, but you said the opposite to what that is, didn't you? So.
And I use the word post-traumatic stress. I don't like to put the word disorder on the back of it because you know what? If you are involved in a car accident, you're going to have certain post-traumatic stress about that car accident. But it's not a disorder. It's normal. It's normal to have a stressful feeling about something that you endured that was stressful. So I kind of don't like the word disorder very much. And I go back to what General Mattis talks about, post-traumatic strength. And I grab my veterans. I'm like, I want you to engage your post-traumatic strength. But there are mental health issues for our young adults and for our veterans sometimes, but what I want them to do is work to overcome them. And the way you do that is you have a close bonds of friends and you have a support network of people who love and care about you, right? That will help you. That's not the end all be all. And that's why I have a social support manager who talks to every single one. They fall under HIPAA laws. My social support managers can't tell me, the boss of NPower California, what they discussed with students because they are certified counselors. So there's a privacy piece there. But we have found that that's really, really effective. And for me, I want to motivate the heck out of every student and just pump them up with positivity. So when they go in the workforce, they're value added. And they're putting NPower, and I tell them, link in with me personally. Go on LinkedIn and LinkedIn. I am personally behind you. Right? It's not just the NPower brand, it's my personal brand. That's how we all feel at NPower, that my network is now your network. And you need to start feeling like an IT professional. And when you don't, pick up the phone and call us. And we'll dissect what you've been through, what you've worked on, and whether that's by referring someone to the VA, referring someone to another care provider. We know who those people are in our neighborhoods, right? Or if it's just, pumping somebody up and getting them ready to go in. There's a thing called Imposter Syndrome where you go to work and you're like, oh, I don't belong here. These people aren't like me or whatever else. We want to get over that as quickly as possible. You do belong there. And like I said, if you can play Madden football or whatever other game you have, Wordle or whatever the thing is today on one of these, you can do a tech job. You just got to learn the basics.
Yeah, Chris, I like what you said there about the imposter syndrome. Because, I mean, I believe like we've all felt it from, say, time to time in our lives or at one point in another. And I personally believe, like, if you don't feel like a bit of an imposter sometimes in certain situations, you're probably not pushing yourself hard enough. Because if you're, say, pushing yourself to that, say, next level of life, you're going to feel like an imposter because you haven't done it before. You haven't got the confidence or competence because you haven't actually done that specific thing yet. But what you mentioned there about, say, supporting those individuals, I believe you said you give them support or ongoing support for a 3-year period. And in any area of life, that's what everybody needs, that ongoing support, because it's okay to help, say, an individual from once in a while. But you mentioned there, Chris, that you say, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I am there at the end of the phone. Like, I'm going to give you that support. So I think that's such an amazing thing to do for those individuals to make them feel confident and that they got somebody there that they can reach out to. So no, that's incredible. So Chris, I'd like to ask you then, what are some of the biggest needs of the individuals that you support, and how are you a part of the solution?
So to me, the needs are of the individual blend with the needs of the organization. And I tell people, I need employers to open their minds and think about hiring some of the young people that I produce, right? 50% are veterans, 50% are young adults from inner cities. There's a lot of creativity there. There's a lot of goodness in that. Over 85% of my students are of minority ethnicity background. I'm increasing the number of women that come in to NPower. And military spouses to me is the untapped huge potential. There's just, military spouses are men and women, but there's a great potential there of people that have sacrificed a lot, moved around different parts of the country, overseas. They bring a lot of really great knowledge. And what we do is 100% free. So getting that knowledge out there and getting employers to say, hey, let me take a look at what NPower has. What's your curriculum look like? Deep dive into what we do, and then hire my graduates. That's the one thing. And then I talk to corporations and foundations to support us financially, because I want this to remain 100% free for students. A lot of the veterans come with their GI Bill, and I say, that is sacrosanct. You keep that for a college education. Now, for some, to pay for vocational training makes sense. But for the most part, my son is using his GI Bill right now to go to college. And man, that is just huge. So I want to keep this free, and I want to keep as many open doors to employment opportunities as I possibly can with a lot of different companies. One of the organizations that hires my students, the San Francisco Giants. How cool is it to be a veteran or a young adult from inner city or San Jose or San Francisco and get to work at the San Francisco Giants or Lawrence Berkeley Labs? Shout out to them. They hire interns up there. Nobel Prize winners work there. You want to talk about imposter syndrome? You leave the Army as a mechanic and go work at Lawrence Berkeley Labs and, saying hi in the hallway to Nobel Prize winners. That's a big deal. But you're a tech professional from that day on. So I've got some really cool employment opportunities, and this is multiplied times 7 regions across the country: New York, New Jersey, St. Louis, Dallas, Detroit. And I just started NPower Los Angeles this year, or last year in October. First class just graduated yesterday, and we're focused on a Microsoft curriculum down in Los Angeles. So NPower is growing. We're doing some different things. And right now, my focus is putting those graduates that graduated yesterday into cool jobs.
Wow. I mean, it sounds to me absolutely incredible. So, wow, Chris. So how many individuals have you supported?
Yeah, we're graduating around 500 a semester right now. So NPower as a whole is putting about 1,000 people into the workforce every year. Actually, more than that, because that's just our tech fundamentals program. As I mentioned, we have advanced programs in cybersecurity and cloud. So of our best students nationwide, they will compete, or they'll go out and do an internship or a job for a year or two, and they'll come back and, you know what? I want to get Security Plus, which is that ticket that gets you into cybersecurity. That's a CompTIA certification. And maybe I'm advertising too much for one. Yeah, there's a lot of different certifications out there, but we use the CompTIA. We use Google. We have Microsoft certifications. And with Security Plus, you can be in cybersecurity, and there's some incredible job opportunities there, and salaries upwards of $80,000 a year. So we take the best nationally. They go into the cyber or the cloud course. They come out after 16, 18 weeks in that program and get into a much higher paying job and more interesting things. So, like I said, the key thing is mobility. You can train somebody for a job to work on for Amtrak or to work for at Amazon or whatever. Those jobs are great, but what is the upward path? Nothing is as fast as tech.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like I mentioned earlier, Chris, like tech is just advancing, and this whole, well, the last couple of years, like you just look at how much the world's changed, and obviously tech is always moving forwards and always changing, but this last couple of years has been like turbocharged for tech. So, wow. So just as we sort of wrap up now, Chris, what is your vision for the future?
Yeah, my vision for the future at NPower is to expand more in California. My job as the executive director in California is, finding the best students, getting them trained, retaining them in the class when the academics get tough, keeping them motivated, not to drop out, but stay in, and then to place them in really great jobs and change their life trajectory. So I think we have more work to do. Sacramento is a great place I'd like to be. There's a lot of veterans in the San Diego area. I'd like to get down there. And then I think, as you look at the Western Seaboard, you've got Seattle and Portland and over to Phoenix, Arizona, that are really places where you have veterans and young people that could use this. And you've also got the tech industry present. The first thing I do is I look at a place, do they have the tech jobs there? And right now, a lot of jobs are remote, but they probably aren't going to always stay that way. You have to go back to the office at some point. So I don't want to train people too far away from where those jobs are, but there's more people that we can serve. So to grow that a little bit, and I know this is going on in the East Coast as well, and in the central United States. And I work really closely with my other executive directors and our headquarters in New York to provide a really great opportunity, get people through our program, and then take care of our alumni. And again, my hope is that, I can reach employers, I can reach potential students to click on our website, check us out. We are for real. A lot of people are like, wait, you provide training and job placement for free? That must be a scam. And I hear this at every graduation. The honor graduates like, when I signed up, I thought this was a scam. Like, okay, that's a hard thing to come over when you're offering something for free and people are skeptical about it, right? Because normally if something's really cool, you got to pay for it. So that's where I see us expanding and growing. And for me as a retired Marine and the veterans on my staff and the civilians on my staff, we represent really the students that we're serving. We understand what they've been through. And, I'm really happy to be in this program and offer it to, everybody that's in one of our neighborhoods. And hopefully we'll expand the number of neighborhoods we're in.
Wow, that's amazing. And like someone who's been there yourself, like, and you mentioned as well, like these guys or guys and girls, they're coming out and they're like, this is free. Like, it can't be free. That what you mentioned earlier about you want to keep this free forever. It takes such a load off, say, the individual. Like maybe say a young man or a young lady's just come out of, say, the military. And he's like, what do I do with my life now? But then they don't want to have that pressure on their shoulders to then be able to afford to pay for their bills and pay for their training or to learn to get into a new career. So, yeah, the whole free thing is, I think is so amazing because that's going to help those individuals out so much. And I mean, even just the thought of having to pay to educate themselves to then move into a new career, I believe it would probably stop many people from even taking the first step. So no, Chris, that's amazing what you do. So for anybody that's listening today, what can somebody do to help and what action steps can they take to be a part of the solution?
Yeah, so just looking at our website, and it's I say capital N and the word power. And that the name is, we look at the nth power. Where can we take you to the nth power of your capabilities, right? So it's, I like I said, I look for three things. I really need employer partners, and as diverse a group of employer partners as I can find. Secondly, I need the funding to be able to make this work. And third, I like to bring people into the class. So if you're an employer and you have a CIO, or you have an entry-level person that's working with, kind of like the jobs that we put people into, a systems analyst, a junior systems admin, have them come into class and talk to my students. I have wonderful people, Craig Newmark of Newmark Philanthropies, the founder of Craigslist. He takes time out of his schedule to come and talk to my students in California. Every class for like the past 5 or 6 classes. Talk about putting confidence in it. They get to talk to a billionaire who founded Craigslist. That boosts your confidence in, like, hey, you know what? People care about me. I can do this, right? One other quick story. I had an Afghan interpreter whose family's going through, was stuck in Kabul, and he served with U.S. forces for 6 years, over 300 combat patrols. English is his 4th language. He signed up for NPower. He was driving Uber. Only job he's ever had here is Uber and doing handyman work off to the side. He now goes to Google and YouTube to work. He works for a company called Astrea. His Afghan buddies didn't even believe him. He studied at night. He worked really hard. He got his certifications, and he works for a company called Astrea. It's a great company that hires and they farm people out to Google. And so his friends were skeptics. They said, "You're just driving Uber. You're not going to a real job." He goes, "No, I'm going to a real job." So he took his phone and he FaceTimed them from the cafeteria at Google and showed them. And I had that day another 5 or 6 applications from his Afghan friends to NPower. Unfortunately, I couldn't take them. We were closed our recruiting already, so they have to come in the next class. But back to the skepticism of it, right? It took this young man being in the cafeteria. I think that's the best marketing ploy I can use, is show the cafeteria at YouTube and Google. Would be my best marketing tools there. But 4th language, English is his 4th language. I mean, he now has his first tech job ever, his first civilian job ever with medical and health benefits. So how cool is that?
I mean, that sounds super cool as well. So no, that's absolutely incredible. So Chris, so if anybody does want to say reach out to you guys, donate, etc., help out in any way, so it's npower.org. Am I right in saying that?
npower.org, and our website has everything on there, from being an employer partner, being a mentor to these young people. We have a mentorship program coming into the classroom. There's plenty of points of contact on there. And hey, I'm Christopher Starling. There's not many of me on LinkedIn. You can send me a LinkedIn message. And we'd love to hear from you, especially if you want to be a student in the program, you want to be an employer, or you want to contribute to our cause. I'm happy to talk to anybody.
Thank you so much, Chris, for today. And for you listening, if you've enjoyed this episode, please press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because that will show the algorithms that this is an important conversation, so more people can learn the importance of supporting military veterans and young adults from underserved communities.